I had a patient who hadn't spoken in 5 weeks, catatonic, completely unresponsive, until the night she looked at me and spoke in my dead mother's voice. She gave me a warning, and she was right. I'm Nurse Raines, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I know happened and what I still, to this day, cannot figure out. I don't scare easy. I don't reach for weird explanations when the regular explanation is sitting right there. 20 years of night shifts will do that to you. You just stop being jumpy. You stop looking for things that aren't there. But I cannot explain what happened in room 402. I've tried. God knows I've tried. For over 20 years. It was late winter, 2003. I was 4 years into a rotation on the locked psych unit at a place I'll just call the downtown facility. Big old building, the kind where the hallways don't quite make sense, like whoever drew up the blueprints got confused halfway through and just kept going anyway. The psych wing specifically had this thing with sound. I've never experienced it anywhere else, and I've worked in a lot of buildings. Sound just moved wrong in there. You'd hear someone laugh from somewhere down the hall, and you'd go look, and there was nobody. You'd swear somebody was walking right behind you on a night where you were completely alone on the floor. We blamed it on the building settling. You'd tell yourself a lot of things on a floor like that. Now, here's what you need to understand about psych nursing before the rest of this makes any sense. When you work that floor, you get good at reading people fast. Patients tell you everything, their worst fears, their delusions, the stuff they've never told another human being. And you learn real quick the difference between someone who's hallucinating, someone who's working you, and something that doesn't fit either box. After 4 years up there, I thought I'd seen everything a human mind could come up with. I was wrong. The patient in room 402, I'll call her Margaret, she'd been on the unit for 5 weeks when this happened. Admitted on a 72-hour hold that just never ended. Mid-60s, thin, white hair that had been styled nicely at some point before everything went wrong for her. A neighbor found her, sitting at her kitchen table, perfectly upright, staring at the wall. Not unconscious, her vitals were fine, her blood work came back clean. She just wasn't there anymore. The attending called it catatonic schizophrenia, and she came to us. 5 weeks in, Margaret had not said one single word. Not to the doctors on rounds, not to the nurses, not to the aides who took care of her every day. She ate when we fed her, she blinked, she breathed, but somewhere along the way she had gone so far inside herself that the rest of us just didn't register. I'd gotten attached to her the way you do on that floor. You learn not to take the silence personally. You just talk to them anyway, during meds, during linen changes, just regular, low-key conversation. Cold one tonight, Margaret. Got you an extra blanket. Chicken for dinner. Didn't look too bad, actually. You do it whether you think they're hearing you or not. You do it because it feels wrong not to. That night, I was working the 11 to 7. Charge nurse was tied up down the hall. Fresh 72-hour hold in 408 had decided 2 a.m. was a great time to be a problem. We were short, like always. The overhead lights in the 400 hallway had been flickering for 3 days, and maintenance hadn't gotten around to it yet. Enough light to work, not enough to feel comfortable. My med cart, my charts, my coffee that had gone cold about 2 hours before. Room 402 was third on the pass. I pushed the door open slow, the same way I always did. Called her name soft so I wouldn't startle her, even though in 5 weeks she had never startled at a single thing. "Hey, Margaret, honey, it's Nurse Raines, just your nighttime meds." One small lamp on low, her monitor was green, O2 sat at 97, everything normal. She was in her usual spot, propped up a little, hands in her lap, eyes open, looking at nothing on the far wall. I drew up her medications. I was doing my usual thing, just talking to her. I think I was telling her it had started snowing outside. And then something in the corner of my eye made me stop. Her head had turned. Not drifted, not slowly shifted. It turned, like she made a decision, and she was looking right at me. Okay, clinical brain kicks in immediately. Eye movement in catatonic patients is a real thing, tracking without any actual awareness. I'd seen it before, so I just held her gaze and said real easy, "Hey there, Margaret, you with me tonight?" What happened next is the thing I've been turning over in my head for 22 years. She opened her mouth, and the voice that came out wasn't hers. It didn't sound like an elderly woman. It didn't sound sick. It sounded exactly like my mother, the same pitch, the same southern drawl I hadn't heard since her funeral 4 years ago. And she said my name. Not Nurse Raines, not my actual first name. A nickname, this small, goofy little nickname my mother made up when I was 4 years old. A family thing, something I never wrote down, never mentioned to a single person inside that building. A word that lived nowhere except inside our family. My hands just stopped. My brain started doing the thing it does. Okay, account for this. Did I mention my mother to this patient? No. Could she have overheard something? Impossible. She's never shown any awareness of her surroundings at all. Is this a close enough match your brain is filling in the gaps? No. I grew up in my mother's voice. I know exactly what it sounds like. The warmth of it, the rhythm of it, the way it sat in her chest when she was talking to me. And what was coming out of Margaret's mouth right then was her. The pitch, the cadence, the Georgia in it. And then she said 2 more things. "Baby, you need to get home." And then, "There's a pipe down low. It's leaking." And then her head turned back to the wall, and she was just gone again. I stood in that room for, I don't know, probably 45 seconds, felt like 15 minutes. I documented it the way you document things in a chart. Patient demonstrated spontaneous verbal behavior at approximately 0247. Verbalization coherent, content unclear. Returned to baseline immediately following. That's what went in the chart. I didn't write what it sounded like. I finished my pass, didn't sleep on break, just sat in the break room with the vending machine and the cold coffee and ran every explanation I had through my head. Sleep deprivation, I was 7 hours into a 12. Your brain playing tricks in a building that already messes with your head. Grief finding a crack and getting in. All of it. I went through all of it. And then I drove home at 7:15 in the morning. Unlocked my front door and heard something before I even got inside. This low sound, like water, coming from under the house. I opened the basement door, 2 inches of water on the floor. A pipe along the main line, low, exactly like she said, had blown sometime overnight. My water heater was half submerged. 3 weeks of repairs, more money than I like to think about. And here's the honest part. Even standing there in the water at 7:30 in the morning, I still tried to explain it away. I called my sister that night and kind of danced around it without saying the real thing out loud. It took me 3 days before I stopped arguing with myself about what I believed had happened. Even now, I catch myself looking for the place where the logical explanation hides. Haven't found it yet. I went back to work the next shift, and I stood in the doorway of 402 for a minute before I went in. She was exactly the same, eyes forward, hands in her lap. Wherever she was still there. I said thank you, quietly, just to the room, just in case. She didn't move. She never spoke again the whole rest of her admission. I looked through what records I was allowed to look at, trying to find something, some connection, some reason why her, why that night. Nothing. She was just a woman who had disappeared inside herself. That was all I could find. The unanswered question of her is the part that never really left me. One more thing, and I know how this sounds, so take it for what it's worth. About a week after the pipe, I was back in 402 for a routine med pass. Ordinary night, nothing going on. I stepped into the room and the wall lamp, the one we always kept on low, was completely off. The aide told me it had been working fine all evening. I reached over and clicked it back on. The room smelled like gardenias, just for a few seconds. My mother grew gardenias in the backyard every summer for as long as I can remember. I've never had an explanation for that either. I'm not going to pretend I do. I'm not going to stand here and tell you what it was. I genuinely don't know. What I can tell you is what I can actually stand behind. The voice, the name, the warning, and 2 inches of water on my basement floor. Those things happened. What I think, and I say this as someone who spent 20 years treating medicine like a religion, is that the line between here and whatever's on the other side is a lot thinner than we're comfortable admitting. We put up monitors and charts and protocols like a wall against that idea every single shift. But some nights, in some rooms, that wall just gets thin, and something gets through. If you've ever worked a hospital floor at 3 in the morning or sat with somebody you loved through the night, you already know exactly what I'm talking about. You just do. And if you haven't, I hope you don't need to learn it the hard way. I still check my basement pipes when I get a bad feeling. I want to know, have you ever received a message from someone who was gone? A dream? A voice? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. I'm Nurse Rains. See you on the next shift.